So, where we left off, we were giving a conceptual analysis of the concept of bachelor, and we had some conditions on what makes something count as a bachelor. So the theory was, look, being male and unmarried are necessary and what are called jointly sufficient conditions on being a bachelor. As long as you are both male and unmarried jointly, all at the same time, that is sufficient. It's enough for you to count as a bachelor. And in order to be a bachelor, well, gosh, you better darn well be male and unmarried. Those are both necessary conditions that you have to meet to be a bachelor. So there's our conceptual analysis of the concept of bachelor. And if you think about it, well, that conceptual analysis is a pretty good answer to the question about just what a bachelor is. A bachelor is someone who is male and unmarried. So you might think, oh gosh, if we want to know what art is, what we should do is do a conceptual analysis of the concept, the idea of art. Try and find necessary conditions on something counting as art and sufficient conditions on something counting as art. Find out, well, what does something have to have in order to be art? And what sorts of things make it the case that it's enough that that thing then counts as art? And that is indeed what most of the philosophers will be reading about in the next couple of weeks try and do. They give different conceptual analyses of what it is to be art. They give different necessary conditions and different sufficient conditions. So one thing you want to think about as you're reading the readings this week is to try and figure out, okay, what are the necessary conditions and the sufficient conditions that this philosopher is giving on something being art? Now, what we'll see is that Weitz actually, this first reading I'm starting off with, he thinks this whole project just ain't going to work. So he's thinking, actually, I don't think you can give necessary and sufficient conditions on something being art. And we'll look to see what some of his reasons are for that in later episodes, and also think about what his alternative is. But for the time being, just notice you might run into problems already with the concept of bachelor. So what I'd like you to think about and to engage with in the discussion is whether anything actually meets those necessary and jointly sufficient conditions on being a bachelor, but isn't actually a bachelor. Because if something meets those conditions but it's not a bachelor, well, then we've got the wrong conceptual analysis. Similarly, if you can think of anything that is a bachelor but doesn't meet those conditions, well, then we've also got the wrong conceptual analysis. And the worry that Weitz, myself, and many other philosophers have is that it might actually be impossible to give conceptual analyses of just about any concept. Weitz, in particular, thinks art's going to be tricky.